Wake Up to Money from BBC 5 Live.
Hello, welcome to the Wake Up to Money podcast. The government's got another answered. Also, how has the charity sector been coping with the pandemic? We hear from one of the UK's biggest charity bosses.
We know that charities are expecting an average reduction of 24% of their total income, which could mean a loss of £12.4 billion across the sector.
And we'll also look at smaller groups who are feeling the pinch.
One of our divisions we've had to close with making 7 staff redundant, which is about 50% of our workforce.
Got Mark Halls with me, who's Chief Executive of the First Steps charity in Essex. Mark, morning to you.
Good morning there, Sean.
Morning. What do First Steps do? Just give us a rundown.
Great. Well, First Step is a charity that works with children with special needs and disabilities in the early years, 0 to 5. And we've been doing that work for 32 years now.
So 32 years, a long time. You'd have weathered a few storms in that time.
Absolutely.
Has this one been any different, do you think?
Well, I think this is really quite unique in terms of what we're facing. I guess that in so many ways it came on us very quickly, so there was little opportunity to prepare. And I think the important thing to understand, particularly from smaller charities are concerned, is that actually this is at the end of a lot of cost cutting that's been going on from government and local government, which means that reserves and resources are already deplenished. And now we come to the situation where suddenly, as your CEO from Macmillan was saying, that we're facing, along with so many other charities, a drop to about 35 to 40% of our normal income levels through fundraising, because we're not able to run the normal community events that we run, things like golf days, quizzes, bingos and things like that. So it's a really tough time, a time during which we've already been forced to actually cut some of our services. One of our divisions, which was educational services, we've had to close with making 7 staff redundant, which is about 50% of our workforce, to ensure that we preserve a long-time future for the organisation.
So in the short term, do you sort of know that there are people who were using some of those services that you've had to cut back, who now, sort of wake up one morning and find out they're not getting those services at all?
Yes, it was with great sadness at the beginning of October that I had to have virtual conversations with 35 families whose children were due to come into our special needs nursery to receive really vital support to them, early intervention to help them maximise their outcomes, to achieve much more of the potential they could, and to actually share with them that unfortunately we weren't going to be able to bring them into those services. I mean, obviously, like charities always do, we're well versed in trying to achieve a lot with a little. And so we're obviously continuing to support all those families on a virtual basis, but it's far short of what they would have been expecting to come into. We did appeal to the local authority. We've been quite proactive over the last couple of years. We were establishing a social enterprise that was aimed to provide baseline funding into the charity that would have kicked in by around September 21, and we did ask the local authority if they could fund us to the tune of £100,000 a year for the next 2 years, which would have meant we could have kept those services going. But unfortunately, they don't feel that they can actually do that, which means that there is this huge gap, and we've got 35 families who are now being forced or wedged into mainstream settings when they actually really require specialised support, which is designed for their children with either medical and physical disabilities or with social communication disabilities.
As different, we've been talking over the course of the show about the debates going on with regional leaders and the government about which tier an area might end up in and the support that comes with it. Do you feel like you've been part of that conversation for your area?
I think that we have been absolutely ignored by our local authority of Havering. We're a charity that has a stand-in with families. There has been absolutely no attempt whatsoever for the local authority to engage with us to talk about how they're going to look after these children. I think it's a travesty. I think it's a lack of respect for organisations that have such a long track record of supporting families, and we're trying very hard to actually get our voice heard at government level, which is quite hard as a small local authority charity to do so. But because of the standing that we hold, the experience that we have over so many years working with preschool children, it is so vital that we get to the higher levels of government to actually encourage them to hear. There's a thing going on at the moment which has been led by Boris, and Andrea Leadsom is leading on the first 1,000 days of life, recognising how vital it is that families are supported in this first period of time. And yet it's the larger charities that have a place into that, rather than some of us smaller charities who are working day in, day out directly with the families straight on. And we could bring so much to the table in feeding back to government about how they could support these families who so need their help. By Boris, and Andrea Leadsom is leading on the first 1,000 days of life, recognising how vital it is that families are supported in this first period of time. And yet it's the larger charities that have a place into that, rather than some of us smaller charities who are working day in, day out directly with the families straight on. And we could bring so much to the table in feeding back to government about how they could support these families who so need their help.